Hello everyone, my name's Cliff and welcome back to my channel. This is Cliff's Dark Gems. Today, my wife and I are going to be having a little chat. We're going to be talking about why we enjoy horror and why horror is important. We're going to be also looking at things like fear and what are some of our darkest, deepest fears. And yeah, we're going to try and relate that to some stories, some novels, short stories, and even some movies. So stay tuned. Okay everyone, first of all, hello my darling.
Hi everyone, hello my darling.
Okay, so we're just going to have just a fun chat.
Yes.
We're going to talk first of all about why people love horror. Well, why we love horror. Because people may have different reasons. So I'm going to start off straight off with my wife. What is it that, why do you love horror?
First of all, I think when something scares me, it makes me curious afterwards as to why did that scare me. And I'm a curious person, I think, so I want to explore that feeling and I want to go back and see why did that scare me and how can I go about it a different way.
That's interesting.
So then I would like to pick up a book more or less on the same topic or watch a movie.
Yeah.
Because of my time constraints, I prefer to watch movies sometimes rather than reading a novel because I can pack a lot into a movie and confront maybe that specific fear, that specific demon. So
So it's not just about curiosity, it's about this is something that is a fear of yours.
Yes.
This is something that, and remember, fear is a negative emotion. It's not
Yes,
a positive emotion.
Yeah.
And that's perhaps also why so many people don't like horror.
Yeah.
Because we are dealing with negative stuff here. But you're confronting it.
Yes.
Okay, and I love the curiosity part. Like, what if I go there? I like the fact that you can go there, but you're in a safe space. So you can go to some very dark places, you know, the darkest parts of humanity. You can go to terrible places that you would never want to go in reality. But at any time, if things get too much, you can just simply put the book down, turn the movie off. And for me, the confronting of that fear in a safe space is very important.
And
but
it's
I
also,
love the curiosity part. That's
it
interesting.
is, and it's also very much like when you're sitting watching a game show. It's very easy when a contestant is asked a very, in your mind, very easy question, and this person doesn't know the answer, and you think, dude, but it's easy, there's the answer, but you're sitting in the safety of your own home, on your couch, watching this poor guy being under pressure. So you basically sitting on the safety of your couch watching this movie where someone else is the one in danger, someone else is the one with that fear. And it's an easy way to confront something that might be very dark in your mind or that scares you.
Okay.
That's how I see it.
That's a very interesting approach. But I also think it's like, and actually I heard one of my subscribers say this one time, we like horror because it's like a roller coaster, it's a thrill. It's the thrill of the ride. And when you're younger and you're excited for that kind of thrill, and some people more than others, you get that sense of going a roller coaster, like, but you've got the safety belt on. You know, you've got that thing they strap over you so that you don't fall out, and you've got all these safety mechanisms. So you experience that intense fear and that emotion, and you scream and shout all the way down. Once you got to the top, you know, you've got that tension building as you get to the top, and then you scream all the way down. And yeah, and then at the end it's like, whew, it was just a ride.
Yes.
It was just.
Yes,
what do you think about
exactly.
that?
I actually, funny that you mentioned fun fairs.
Well, roller coasters.
Well, roller coasters are usually at fun fairs,
Yeah.
right? I absolutely love fun fairs, just like you do. It's there is something magical about going to a fun fair. The funny thing is when you go there, for myself, I love those roller coaster rides, yeah. And I would love I would like the highest ones, the scariest ones. And you put yourself...
Hopefully when we were younger, not now.
Not now, not so much now, but when we were younger.
Now it'll be high.
Yes. Exactly, especially if you had some chili dogs beforehand. But for me it will be taking the scariest ride, the one that takes you, and you put yourself in that danger. That's the funny thing. It's not really danger, because like Cliff says, you're strapped in, you've got the safety harness, all of that. And yet you scare yourself by doing that, because you know. You're building in anticipation, so I think it's about adrenaline. I love an adrenaline rush, and because it's a feel-good feeling, even if it means that you're scared.
Yeah.
So you scare yourself in order to get sort of an adrenaline high.
Yeah.
And the same with maybe, you know, sort of a ghost house at a fun fair.
Although I find those less scary, they're just more creepy. I like creepy things as well.
They're creepy, but you know it's make-believe. But then maybe later at night when you're alone at home, if you don't have a partner, you sit there and you think, imagine you in that house and all of a sudden all the doors shut and you're alone there. And those creatures
things and the noises that start happening in your house and you're alone.
And they are not really just make-believe. What then? So, you know.
But you're not alone, so you're okay.
I think reading horror adds to the imagination and vice versa. Yeah. With an imagination, you turn to horror.
Yeah.
That's what I think.
Okay then, now this is another question. Why do people not like horror? Why are there so many people that will not go to those places?
That's a very good question. I think I like to push my boundaries. My own personal boundaries. I like to push it. And I don't think all people are comfortable with doing that. So I believe it's a case of, are you comfortable enough to push those boundaries a little bit further, or do you want to stay in that safe spot? You know, so I think it's a matter of.
But I think it's a certain type of person that's going to be enjoying horror. And I did a video early on in the year where I talked about introvert, extrovert, and I found it very surprising that online they say that it's mostly extroverts that enjoy horror. And now, perhaps when I was a lot younger, I saw myself as an extrovert. Now, completely the opposite. We're both introverts,
yes,
right?
Absolutely.
But we still get that thrill. And I think a lot of people, because remember, fear is a negative emotion. Fear associated with things like anxiety, tension, all these horrible things that can cause us harm. It's all about stuff that can cause us harm, that can hurt us. That is a negative emotion. And it's people that read horror confront those fears, and I think it's healthy. But the people that will not go there, and that's okay. You know, people want to read about romance and happy things. That's fine.
Yes.
Now, I think horror readers are a special breed because we confront those fears. We go there. And another very, very interesting thing is that one of my subscribers, and I'm remembering this from a video I did in like March, April, said something about self-empathy. So why do we like horror? It's like if you are damaged and depressed or suffer from anxiety or depression or things like that,
yes.
Or you're a creature of the night, or you know, you're a night person, or you maybe a goth, or you fit into a group that is not sort of, society doesn't deem it as normal. You kind of relate to horror. You kind of relate to the things that are happening in a horror novel, like with vampires and stuff like that.
Yes.
So I just think that was very interesting, and I never mentioned that in my previous video. And I cannot remember who mentioned it. I hope you're watching, you can remind me. But you said that to me, and I remember now. And I think that's a very important point as well.
Yes, I think so too.
That a lot of people that read horror are sometimes, not always, kind of on the fringes of society, or they feel they don't belong.
Yes.
And horror gives them, they sort of almost identify with the monsters, they identify with creatures.
Yes.
That you know,
yes, that's a very good point. Absolutely, I agree.
Yeah, okay, can we move on to the next thing?
Yeah.
You said to me, you actually gave me here a list of your deepest, darkest fears.
Yes.
And I asked you to think about books, short stories, movies, movie adaptations that connect with those fears. Because remember, we kind of, some of us don't all like the same kind of horror, and sometimes our deepest fears are different to other people's deepest fears. So I thought that would be interesting.
Yes.
First thing you said was something you can't control. What I can't control, out of your control. So what do you mean by that?
So something you can't control is when you all of a sudden find your world ripped out from under you. Your comfort zone, you're out of your comfort zone completely. Like for instance, post-apocalyptic.
The hardy-dars there we're going to talk about in a future episode, I promise.
When your world is all of a sudden ripped apart from you. So that is basically something completely out of your control. You find yourself displaced, you're not in your home anymore, you don't have free access to food, medicine, anything like that. That is being out of control. That is something you cannot control, but your immediate environment is your only emotion is to survive. How are you going to go about it? What are you going to do? That is, to me, fear, because it renders me full of fear just to imagine being in a world all of a sudden, whoa, there are no people around you, maybe your family is gone, could be anything, natural disaster, a tsunami, it could be, anything, so to me that is a big
You just feel like helpless, completely helpless.
Yes.
Yeah. And what kind of book or short story or movie or anything like that that you can think of?
Well, I mentioned in our previous chat Swan Song, and why I love that book so much, and that is a classic example of all of a sudden, out of the blue,
Just
worlds destroyed and
but that was another point that you made further on.
Well, yes.
But we're getting it's linked. It is linked.
It basically flows together.
Yeah.
Because that's basically something completely out of your control. And then I read a book, I saw a movie called A Stir of Echoes. And I would love to read the book. I believe it was Richard Matheson, which I would love to read. And if any one of you have read the book, I would love to know if it is worth picking up, because the movie was exquisite. It really, really, it scared me. Yeah. I love that movie. I actually watched it twice. Kevin Bacon did a brilliant job, but apart from that, he finds himself in a situation where he's basically out of control. He sits down to some therapy session or whatever for the fun of it with a friend, and all of a sudden the floodgates to something in his mind opens, and he seems to be helpless against whatever he needs to do. It becomes like an obsession.
Yeah.
So that obsession is, it renders him helpless. He just has to do something, and he keeps pushing for this, and it's destroying his family life, it's destroying his health, it's destroying his mind, his sanity, everything. That is being out of control as well. So there's like a different sort of connotation to it as well. It's not just your environment, but also what's going on in your head.
Yeah, and Richard Matheson, I've read quite a bit.
You have?
And I've read a science fiction of his that I reviewed early on in the year, which was A Shrinking Man, which was absolutely brilliant, completely unexpected. And I've also read, something Legend?
I Am Legend.
I Am Legend,
yeah.
Not this year, but that's also an incredible book. So yeah, if you've read Stir of Echoes, let us know. And let us know if that fits in with this whole thing, if it's as good as a movie adaptation. Okay, another thing we're going to talk about is, you say you are afraid of a supernatural presence.
Yes.
What do you mean by that?
Supernatural presence to me is something that your eyes see but your brain doesn't understand. So something that's not part of our natural world. So if you see a person in front of me like you, not scary. You see a dog, not scary. You see a tree, not scary. But you see something that doesn't make sense in this world, that doesn't belong here, that's against nature, something you don't know what it is, so you don't know what to expect from it. That to me is scary. I remember many years back, and sorry I come back to movies, but The Thing, I watched the movie.
Well, that's a novelisation as well, so
yeah,
I've read it, wasn't that impressed.
But the movie to me was terrifying.
Yeah.
And what I remember from that movie, and I was quite young, so I don't remember all the details, but it was good enough to stick in my mind. And I remember that shadow. Did they see that shadow or something like that? And it's gone. And you won't fear a spider you can't see, but you will fear a spider you can see and then not see anymore.
And like we got lots of spiders here, people. This is the subtropics.
At least they're part of nature, so that's a different kind of fear.
Yeah.
But if you're sitting alone in your house and all of a sudden you see something go past you, or you just see something in your room, and you know for a fact you live alone, for instance, you don't have pets, there's no reason for anything to move.
We don't live alone, so we're okay.
But that is what I mean by supernatural, sort of, presence. It could be like a ghost sort of thing, and people say, "Oh, ghosts." No, I'm not scared of ghosts, but it depends how friendly that ghost is. If it's not Casper, I might be very afraid. So
that's interesting. I love the supernatural, I do, and the thing was terrifying. But for the most part, I don't see it as anything that's deep and dark in terms of fear for me. I'm kind of the opposite. I almost, this is something I've never spoken about on this channel, but I think about some of the books I've been reading recently. An example is Off Season by Jack Ketchum. That is not the fear of the supernatural. That is real. That is torture. That is pain. That is hurt. That is being helpless and being captive and being tied down and being hurt. And I've realized that actually is a huge fear of mine. That is a massive thing. And maybe something before this year that I've been avoiding reading, and I hate watching it. Believe me, I don't like torture videos. Right? I think we're the same there.
Yes.
We will not. What do you call those videos that happen now? Home invasions and stuff like that, and torture. And I don't like that. Well, actually, funny enough, we both enjoyed Hostel 2. To a certain extent. To a certain extent. Because the women get back. It's like but normally we hate those movies. We don't like them. We like the more psychological or kind of horror movies. But I realised that Off Season, and there are a couple of others that I've read. I can't remember all of them. But even Silence of the Lambs, it's real. It's serial killer real. It's not real, but it's that threat of being harmed, of someone doing things to you, of hurting you. That is just like in my mind.
And this comes back to the beginning of our video when we spoke about why we read horror.
Yeah.
And I said I like to push my boundaries, but there are certain, I wouldn't go beyond certain boundaries. So the books that you're reading currently that you enjoy, and that's body horror and that sort of thing, even though you don't watch the movies, I will not go there. Yeah. So if I know a book is
and that's why it's so important to have warnings. It's so important for a book to have warnings, trigger warnings, because people are not able to go there, like animal torture.
I wouldn't pick up a book. In fact, just a little thing I've never shared with you. I DNF'd the book.
You haven't shared something with me.
I DNF'd the book Sleeping Beauties. That was written by Stephen King and Owen King jointly, because of animal. Well, it wasn't really. They didn't describe the animal torture scene, but they described what was done. That's all I'm going to say. And because of that, I couldn't. I just didn't want to read that book anymore.
Yeah.
I lost all interest.
Yeah.
So and unfortunately, those things stay in your mind. If you by accident read or see something that you wouldn't normally go there,
it's not
that
right.
That is the one thing that's
like not. That's why,
it's not nice.
As a booktuber, I try always not to describe a really bad book without giving trigger warnings. Sometimes maybe I fail there, but obviously with an extreme novel, it's almost unnecessary sometimes, because if you're going to go into an extreme novel, you can expect every trigger warning in the book. Animal torture, violence, rape, everything, which pretty much is what these books have got. And pushing boundaries, but there's still some things I don't like, and I won't go there. Okay, another fear that she has is being pinned down. Not necessarily just physically, but trapped.
Two of my favourite short stories of Stephen King is, they've got One Hell of a Band and Crouch End. I think read both those stories about 4 times.
Instead of reading other books?
Yes. And the funny thing is, I love Stephen King. I've read most of his books, not the new stuff, but most of it. And yet I find his short stories a lot more terrifying and scary than his novels. When I actually took a look at the Stephen King novels that I've read and the short stories always stand out for me. The book the collection of short stories that stand out the most is Nightmares and Dreamscapes. He managed to capture my fear so radiantly in
Again,
those
any examples of stories there?
Well, like I said, Crouch End.
Yeah.
They've got one hell of a band.
Okay, but what is it about those stories though?
In both stories, the couples are trapped.
And they can't go anywhere.
Trapped. They're trapped and they're out of control, which
Same as
basically brings me
earlier.
back to my previous, but also they're trapped. And they don't seem to know how to get
There's
out.
no escape. There's no escape.
So you basically trapped in. That's what I said earlier about going into the ghost house at the front door as well. And afterwards, you think, what happens if those doors close all of a sudden and there's no way out, and these monsters really come to life. So Crouch End and Rainy Season is a third one in that collection of short stories that was absolutely brilliant. Absolutely loved how we were doing. They were also kind of trapped, and to me that's a real fear. You being trapped alone.
Well, explain that fear, because you told me earlier, and I've experienced it as well. And this is a real fear. If you're willing to share.
I've had sleep paralysis on many times in my life. For those who don't know what that is, it's basically, in my specific case, is basically being like having a dream inside of a dream, and you can't wake up. And during that dream, it is like you are alive in a dream, and it's an absolute nightmare. And your subconscious knows that you are dreaming, and yet you cannot get out of it. And a couple of times, or more than a couple of times, I actually had this feeling of being pinned down here, or something holding me. And it's not something natural. It is something that I cannot explain. I don't know where that comes from. Yeah. And so sleep paralysis is a real thing, and I don't know if it's a disorder or It's
but I know that when I try and wake you by touching you,
yes,
you absolutely freak out and you run out crying.
Yeah.
It's not a joke.
It takes a long time for me to get over
the fact that you were asleep and now you're awake.
Yeah. So and that goes along with stress. I must admit, ever since we've moved here, I don't get it so much anymore. Maybe once or twice, but when it happens to you, it sticks in your mind. So you get that sort of sensation of fear that is so real. Yeah. Because even though it's a dream, in that moment it's not a dream. I remember once, it got me so bad that I actually had to go outside. I had to make myself a cup of coffee, and I had to sit and breathe in the air. Yeah. And it took me 10 to 15 minutes to finally just get back to reality. That is how deeply it affected me. Yeah. And reading books like, or short stories like Crouch End, and they've got one hell of a band, is a more looser sort of connection to that kind of fear.
Like trapped in eternity in a situation that you can't control, you can't get out of, there's no exits. And I'm not going to say anything about the stories, we're not going to talk about the stories, but basically you are a lost person or a lost couple, and there's nothing you can do.
Yeah.
Nothing you can do.
So I think when it comes to Stephen King and short stories, if you've never read short stories before, pick up Nightmares and Dreamscapes, because to me it is
very underrated horror.
Yeah, it is very good.
Yeah. Okay, we're going to go to the last question now. Because this is a long video. This is a good one. Waking up in another world where the world is utterly changed, and we have touched on this, but it's going to, like, literally everything is swept from under your feet. There's nothing. Your family, your house, your job, the world, your life is ripped out from under you. We're talking what here?
Well, that's losing your mind.
And this is both of us, really.
Yes, but that's more something, that fear to me is not something physical like we talked about in the beginning. That is the kind of fear where the movie I watched, Shutter Island, I would love to watch Shutter Island.
Highly recommended. Highly recommended.
It was scary.
It's a psychological terror sort of thriller, but it's so brilliant. It is such a good movie. And you don't see the end coming. You do not see it coming.
It is brilliant.
Yeah.
And so, my fear, I think The Shining is a very good example. Stephen King, The Shining, where, Jack Torrance, I'm not going to give spoilers, but, what happens when you slowly descend into something that at some stage you start to experience two realities and you don't know which one is the right one.
Yeah.
How scary is that?
Yeah.
If you know.
He goes there he goes in the book anyway, not the movie. Goes in there in as a normal person. Okay, he's made terrible mistakes in the past with his family. He's hurt his son, but he goes in there and he's trying to make amends. He's trying his very best to make amends. And the Shining book, it does a brilliant job of just showing this man's just descent into, well, madness. I haven't read the book long enough to really speak properly about it, but that's what I remember, is that he goes mad, and there's nothing he can do to stop it. And that's kind of sad.
I think it's scary as well.
It's terrifying.
Because if you're not in your own body anymore, and you're not in control of your own thoughts anymore, that comes back to control as well, you know?
All good deeds make Jack. What? Something makes Jack a dull boy. Yeah. Okay, let's go on to the last one now.
Yes.
We're talking about apocalypse and apocalypse. You know, like waking up in another world where everything is ripped away. This is why we both love Swan Song.
Yes.
And it really, really resonated with me, is because that is a fear of mine. When you wake up in the world and you're helpless, everything is gone, your family's gone, your wife's gone, your parent, your children, your dog, your life, your everything. Could be a nuclear bomb, could be a nuclear war, like in The Stand. It could be something a little bit slower, no less painful, like a cough and the flu, like in The Stand. It could be any reason, but the world has changed, and you have to now survive, right?
Yeah.
You have to survive, and you have to go out there.
Yes.
And you have to make sure that you are going to survive in this world where other people might be what?
Watching you, and you know.
Not as good as you.
Yes, and you know they'll do anything to survive, and that is a very scary concept.
They could eat you.
That's a very scary concept. We feel so safe at home. We've got our routines, we've got everything in life, and if that all of a sudden falls away from you, wow, I couldn't imagine
what would happen there.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Okay, and I thought, just for fun, to finish off everyone, because this has been a long video, we were talking about fear. We'd talk about very quickly what are the worst ways to die. Now, I've already said that one of my worst ways to die is drowning, and yet, as my wife reminded me, drowning is kind of peaceful. Apparently, you kind of start losing your breath, and you go through this kind of euphoria where your last thoughts are actually, and then you drift away. Whereas my wife had something a little bit more traumatic. What was your worst way to die?
Mine would be to burn to death. I think there is no greater pain, no more horrific way to die than to burn to death. I cannot imagine anything else.
Yeah, did you know back in the Roman times they used to do something where they... Okay, sorry, I won't go there. But in Roman times they did something very terrible. But okay, we're going to actually move on to the last thing, because my wife has asked me, and I said let's put it at the end of the video. But it is actually pretty awesome, so I hope you stay tuned in. She just wanted to give a very quick background to the shirt that I bought her, Leonard Cohen. I don't know how many of you heard of Leonard Cohen, but yeah, my wife chatted about it.
Leonard Cohen is most probably... actually the one singer, artist in this world that I love the most, that has the most profound impact on my listening to music, reading poetry. The first time I heard him was in the movie Natural Born Killers, movie I absolutely loved, and I heard the song Waiting for the Miracle.
Lyrics are very dark.
It's a very dark movie, it is very dark. And I heard the song Waiting for the Miracle. I absolutely fell in love with that song. And then there was another one in there, The Future, sung by the same man. So I went and I googled it and I found Leonard Cohen, My Life Was Never the Same. His lyrics were very dark. I cried the day he died, it was a couple of years back. I physically cried. Because it was very sad.
I told you.
He had a profound influence on me, and I have some priceless books that my husband bought me. Everybody knows, and also this beautiful little book that I absolutely love, Every Man. And then I've got another one, Book of Longing, also, which I couldn't find, unfortunately. That is a book of poems. It is absolutely gorgeous. We opened our dance floor to our wedding on Dance Me to the End of Love, also by Leonard Cohen. Sounds like a beautiful love song. It's not. His lyrics are very dark, and that song specifically was actually
that song refers to World War II, the Holocaust.
Yes.
Yeah, it's actually a very sad song.
The violence that were played.
The violence were played, yeah. We're not going to tell you.
No.
You can look that up yourselves if you know. If you know, you know. Let us know in the comments. But that, yeah, he's a very, very powerful musician.
Yeah.
And my wife got me into him a little bit as well.
Yes.
I don't like him as much as she does, but there are so many songs by him that are truly awesome. So
absolutely
I love him. Yeah.
And
almost as much as David Bowie. Not quite. Yeah.
Awesome, thank you.
But anyway, my darling, it was good to have you on my show.
It was, thank you so
Sorry
much.
this was a long one, guys, but I hope you enjoyed that. But yeah, if you enjoyed my content, please be sure to like and subscribe. Until next time, take care of yourselves.
Keep those pages turning,
And
cheers.